Time for us to see the headlines across Nigerian newspapers. And on a Friday like this, I have my regulars here. Chris Kende-Nwandu, CEO CKN News is here. Chris, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Happy Good Friday.
Today you went to Otukpo.
Yes.
So you're an Idoma man today.
I want to be an Idoma man this morning.
Interesting. Nasir Kwarra is also here, chartered accountant and public affairs analyst. Thank you so much for coming.
Good morning, Mike.
Good morning.
And thank God it's Friday, not just ordinary Friday,
Yeah, a good Friday.
Friday.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We just finished talking about the significance of that with a pastor. All right, let's begin with the Guardian newspaper this morning. Guardian says, at Easter, Buhari, Lawan, Atiku, Tinubu preach hope for Nigeria. Nigeria will triumph over spate of evil, Buhari tells Nigerians. And Khan urges government to ease hardship suffering in the nation. And Nigerians lament hiking food prices, call on government for intervention. All right, all that on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. Daily Times, Easter is the focus here. Nigeria will overcome uncertainty in security, Buhari says. Tasks Nigerians on love for one another. Leadership says rising insecurity, you must act now. Council of State tells PMB. All right. And the Punch newspaper is next, and it says insecurity, United States approves $1 billion attack helicopters, others for Nigeria. Buhari meets service chiefs. Insists Nigerian military must undergo human rights related training. And PDP knocks APC over killings, kidnappings, says the ruling party has failed. All right, all that on the front page of the Punch newspaper. All right, the Vanguard is next. Plateau massacre, how 106 persons were killed in one night. Really troubling. That's at the Vanguard. Daily Trust says, 8 years after, 24 Chibok parents dead and 109 girls still in captivity. Really troubling. It was particularly precisely yesterday that we commemorated that, the 14th of April. Daily Sun is next now. It says, federal government proposes April 2023 for census. The Buhari to meet security chiefs Tuesday approves pardon for 159 inmates. Okay, if time permits us, we'll certainly talk about this. First news, Buhari pardons ex-governors Darie Nyame jailed for corrupt practices. All right, this is also something a lot of people have been talking about. Moving to Blueprint newspaper, 4 years into jail terms, Council of State pardons Darie Nyame. Okay. That's part of these things we'll be looking at now. News Direct, money laundering, terrorism prevention bills. Nigeria risks blacklist, Buhari writes the Senate. That's News Direct. This Nigeria is next, and it says, despite opposition, National Assembly approves 4 trillion naira for subsidy. Despite opposition, National Assembly approves 4 trillion naira for subsidy. All right, from there, let's go to the Nation newspaper. Experts say economy will sink further with the 4 trillion naira subsidy. Okay, let's go further to the Nigerian Tribune. 2022 revised budget. National Assembly approves 4 trillion naira for fuel subsidy. Okay, and Business Day is the last one we're looking at now. More Nigerian tech developers set sides on jobs abroad. Okay, well, still talking about a lot of people relocating and nasleaving the country. All right, but we're still here seeing how we can, make contributions to the nation, just like CKN and Census Kwarra here in the studio. Now, gentlemen, let's talk about this, the Council of State meeting held, and a few things, tabled before the council were looked into. One of it is the issue of national census, because the point there is that Nigeria is, I think, by this year we're 6 years behind schedule, because we're supposed to have held it in 2016, but we didn't hold it, and we're 6 years after, because it's ideally supposed to be a 10-year period. Whether you do it, physically or practically in that manually that way, or you devise other means, but then, and then also the issue of the pardoning of 159 people from jail or from their jail terms also was part of what they looked at. And this has made headlines with Nigerians reacting to all of these. All right, CKN, let me start with you on this. When it comes to clemency and the issue of pardon, the Constitution gives the powers to, the president through all the instruments, to decide whom to pardon, depending on what circumstances and all of that. But Nigerians are looking at the issues of precedences, especially when you say, okay, this person was jailed by a competent court of jurisdiction to have been corrupt one way or the other. Talk to us basically what you feel about this, though.
Yes, Mike, as you rightly said, the president has the prerogative power to be able to pardon anybody he deems fit. The same power is given to governors as well. Then it was always based on recommendations by groups set up to do such. What they do is to have a due diligence of the people be asked to be pardoned and make recommendation to the president. He has the right to agree or refuse to such recommendations. And good enough, the Council of State met yesterday. That's the first time they're meeting in a very long while. And part of the recommendation was that such pardon should be extended to those people. But Nigerians are not happy with some of the names. I particularly am not happy that some of our leaders that have been convicted for acts of corruption, we are giving pardon. And that, just as rightly said, is precedent. And that in itself is not good enough. If Darie, Nyame were convicted for such huge, is no longer alleged embezzlement and rest of them, then they should go in for it. And whatever sentence they are giving, most often than not, when you look at other crimes, established nations and rest of them, they don't easily do that. Except it becomes absolutely necessary for someone like Trump at a point, you know what happened with some of his advisors and the rest of them. But ordinarily they don't do that because it has to serve as a deterrent to others. When you start doing this, then it gives room for a lot of impunity because those who are there presently and doing what they are doing believe that, for goodness sake, one day probably will be pardoned, even if I'm convicted. But if you know that you're not going to be pardoned, then you'll be very, very careful when you're dealing with public funds because those funds are not yours. It belongs to certain individuals. Nigerians are dying by the day, dying on a daily basis because some of them cannot even afford. It used to be 101. Mike, in those days.
Yes.
Now, even it's 000. You remember in those days,
so many people,
so many people, 0 is 000.
If I raise, I don't know a lot of maths, but 0 raised to power 3.
And that is it. So, but the president, as you said, has set the precedent. And subsequently, if another president comes and does what he has just done, there might not be anybody to be able to do. But finally, Mike, don't also forget that, that was not reflected, but don't also forget that the council also refused to, and that is where I was a bit moved. The council also refused to pardon a particular former MD of a bank. That was also convicted. I don't want to mention, you know. That was, yes. So if they could use that same right to be able to pardon these ex-governors, then why then they were all criminal cases and corruption cases. So why did they pardon? That is that they are shielding their own too, and that in itself is where the problem is.
Sheson, I wonder what you make of this, because the point is, as it is, when we are talking of precedences, it looks like well, we've been doing it, so that's how we do it. Now, if out of the 59 people, prominent names that are found there, 2 former governors, have been pardoned, it looks like if you are a governor and whatever thing you steal or you misappropriate or divert, as the case may be, and you are jailed, there's going to be pardon somehow. Because there will be the issue of the blackmail of, well, you did it for this person, you did it for that person, so what's the big deal?
CKN, maybe I will start on a very lighter note. The approval that we got for those people, I saw one comic bringing out a university of corruption that they now have a BSc in corruption. I think the approval of this case has shown that people can enlist themselves for that kind of a qualification. Because what we have practically done, if you look at, is creating double standard and shielding the politicians who has impoverished the people. One of the headlines you read this morning, crying out to say, can you liberate us from the hunger? There is serious hunger in the land. CKN affirming that it used to be 101 or 110, you know, at least maybe skip one. Now you can even skip practically everything and look for water to drink the whole day. That is even if you get the water.
And then,
because I know the cost of pure water.
And then hope to take one the next day. And
the next day, maybe skip the
go back to 000.
Yeah. And then like all we get from our prayer is to pardon the same set of people that have impoverished their states, bringing them down. It's really disheartening. When I was reading the header this morning, I was like, what does this connote? It as promotes corruption the more. If this administration is fighting corruption and we are getting this as pardon, then we'll get more of some of these things, people going into this and thinking that after a while, ask them, they will now become chief in advising people how they actually, you know, go around it for them to get the state pardon from the, because something must have happened for them to have gotten this. You have been convicted that you embezzled the state funds. Not that, so you see that the judiciary failed in their process and we have to apologize to them that they've not done it, or what we are trying to preach is that, well, they've done it, let's just forgive them, allow things to go. The truth of the matter is government should be sincere when it comes to the issue of corruption, so that the younger generation can learn that if you are doing something wrong, there is punishment for it. This kind of people, don't be surprised. You come out tomorrow, they have, now that they have the pardon, they can contest for any political office again. Now they've left as governor. You know the way it goes. You move from House of Assembly to Rep, you go to governor, from governor. It's always from governor to Senate.
No, so even some of them were senators. Dari is a senator.
He can still contest as a general, you understand?
When he was,
so it's really not like encouraging on a day like this to be reading this kind of news of people that have impoverished our people, the citizens that they claim to lead, and we are coming out to say we have pardoned them when we should see them behind the bar for the rest of their life.
All right. Now, there'll still be time for us to dwell on this and look at all of the other implications of the pardon for persons who have been convicted for corruption. But I'd like us to touch briefly on this census issue. Now, we saw the chairman of the National Population Census in the report when he was addressing the press. And he was saying that everybody wouldn't need to travel back to their villages and homes to be counted for census. You and I, everyone knows that has always been the norm.
Exactly.
It is time for census. In fact, when the MPC came up with the area demarcation, people were traveling back to their homes, thinking that was part of the,
of course,
and so on. But the issue there is, it is said that we don't stay where you are, where you're working. It is better that way, so that when there's a distribution of whatever, it will capture you where you are. But I think there has to be something more, more sensitization in this regard. Talk to us there.
Yes, there should be more sensitization, but Mike is political.
Okay.
And it's political. Mike,
is political.
It's okay. If I'm in Lagos State, where I was born, we are doing the census, and they can't be Lagos, which obviously they will. Lagos have a population of about 25 million. And you go to my village in Obu and Imo State, and you don't count me. And Imo State come out with 5 million. Tomorrow, with the sharing, when they
want to share
when they want to share, it is the population that will, it's just population. So, Mike, so it's why I say it's political. So it's not, yes, there'll be a lot of sense, but we know how this thing works, right? We are Nigerians. Tomorrow they say, oh, Imo State is the least populated state in Nigeria. And when they are giving out those things they give out, I don't want to nation is. My state will receive the list.
Is there a national cake?
Is it like, well, that national cake? When they bake and when they want share them, they will come share small one, give my state. So that is why when this thing comes up, we have to immediately go back to where we are coming. So those are the issues.
All right.
But on a more serious note, I think we should embrace technology, as it were. We don't need to be. It's just like election. If I maybe just as I've been saying with our election too, the fact that we should make it possible for people to just vote electronically and wherever they are. Most people do it across. It is only in this country that we are going to have election and we close down the whole nation.
Shut down the nation.
Ghana here, during election, you see them going about their normal businesses. Then the next thing they just do. They vote and go. Diaspora voting. People in the when the United States is going to have its election, you know that servicemen and most of their countrymen that outside America, they vote. They don't need to go back to the United States to vote. In fact, what they do is that they even vote before the main election. So that is what's supposed to. So I don't think that. But the problem for me is that, Mike, since 1960, there has always been controversies over our census.
Yeah. There is.
You know that very well.
Always been.
And what we have to start thinking is that how do we get out of that quagmire that there is no single census that we've conducted in this country that has not been
disputed.
That is
now,
it.
Sheson, the issue there is where you are. If you, for like in the analogy CKN was saying, if you live in Lagos, you work in Lagos, you pay your taxes in Lagos, and it's time for census, and you go back to your village, for instance, to be counted. At the time when they are trying to ascertain how to distribute infrastructure and all of that, and then you were supposed to be in Lagos, but you were counted in Imo State in this case, and then instead of counting him in Lagos to provide the service for him in Lagos, he's not there. How detrimental is this to all of us in this in general?
You see, the reason why we have picked on government to say the basis of allocating some of these things, I think what should be paramount is I am a Nigerian, and that equality should be there. But when you start segregating based on the analogy created, it's against the norm in the sense that it's actually stretching the facility, infrastructure provided by Lagos where he resides, and during census, it goes to Imo to go and be counted. So how do you balance that out?
Using him as an example.
No, I'm only just an analogy.
Maybe can use another.
But practically, that's what happens.
Okay.
And that's why we have said that the government, as we speak, it's because we have the old and aged people leading us. This is where technology plays the role. And when you use technology, you would have set in certain parameters. And that at the click of it, you see those things just coming and distributing it the way it should be. Just having even one of the data that we have collected, just punch it in, it tells us that, okay, Sheson is from Osun State, but he resides in Lagos. Which part of Lagos? This is where he resides. So if we need to take decision on those set of people, but as we speak, we don't have data. I'm sure this census is another avenue to impunge our people by voting so much rather than going the route of technology. You definitely see that we declare public holiday for this kind of a thing, which shouldn't be. Right. Let's employ technology. AI will do certainly so much of these things with you just capturing and submitting those things on, and we'll have the right data that we're supposed to work with.
All right. Sheson Kwarra, thank you so much for coming on the program this morning.
Thank you very much.
Good Friday like this. Thank you.
A very good
Friday. Chris Kendingwandu, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, man.
You're an Idoma man today.
Yes, I am. And don't run to your state.
During the next
I am here and I am here. It's fine.
Have a wonderful week.